Our next thing that we're going to be looking at are going to be Sculpt Solid. So to put it in a bit of context, so thinking about the classroom environment, the biggest opportunity for Fusion 360 is not necessarily with existing accounts or existing industry types. The opportunity is really who Fusion was built for. You probably hear a lot of people asking, is Inventor going to be replaced by Fusion? And for those of you who have spent some serious time with both Fusion and Inventor, you'll know that that seems a real silly thing. The reality is, and the clarification that we must make, is what Fusion is for. So I've actually heard a story to help people relate to what it is. The most important thing about it is to think of Fusion 360 as a separate company than Autodesk. Think of it as a company sitting out there that realised that Inventor, SolidWorks, Creo, Solid Edge, NX, CATIA, all these tools are just amazing. They do all of these phenomenal industrial orientated, hyper standards driven phenomenal things. But they also do some quite basic stuff too, like simple solid modeling, simple drawings. It's very easy to make solids from the drawings. You can do nice renderings, and there is a whole lot of people out there who are either starting companies, are hobbyists, who are possible farmers or lawyers that they do for a living, but they also like to make stuff in their spare time. Maybe a lawyer that likes to make birdhouses at the weekend, or the farmer who just needs to fabricate something for one of his machines. Those people do not need Inventor. They don't need the industrial focus tool. This little company called Fusion 360 started a tool that was going to be able to do the most important things that the big tools do, but without the intellectual overhead, the cost, and have the flexibility of being able to start a design on the laptop sitting at the coffee shop and finishing it at home on a Mac without having to move data around. Taking advantage of the cloud storage and cloud delivery. It's just a different tool for different people. And this is where part of the challenge is as well. Do you reach people that you typically don't reach? And some that might be found with doing some exhibits or outreach to local makerspaces and fab labs, or looking for professional organisations where people maybe do things related but not quite engineering and mechanical or industrial design, but finding opportunities to get the word out that the tool is available. The thing is, for those of you that work for resellers, it's a very different product in that as frequently your training is also related to a sale somewhere where you have been able to get revenue from the sale itself, but that isn't the case. As even if you are able to sell Fusion 360, a large number of people, especially the people just getting started with Fusion 360, would qualify for the software for free anyway. It does require a different approach, but hopefully you'll see that at least through the next couple of days here where opportunities might be. But you're definitely going to want to try and stretch and think outside of the box, because Fusion 360, even when we get into the more traditional mechanical stuff tomorrow, you'll see it's just available for people who would not normally have it. And that's also why it's good to get involved with some of the education efforts that we're putting out there, and to help be able to build a relationship there. And you might be able to leverage for other events to help draw some of those people in and give them an opportunity to try the software and sit down with them and work through the real process, or even help them recognize a process or develop a process. Definitely a different approach though. What we're going to do now is start transitioning into, for the next hour or so, this free-form body. And we will complete the free-form body and then move into the solid world, so we can take advantage of the traditional solid modeling tools to augment the design. What we will be doing is going ahead and adding more surfaces or T-spline bodies, again bringing things together. We will also take advantage of taking a look at a couple of new tools and a couple of new approaches versus drawing, the basic primitives. Then we'll go ahead and create a solid model from all of these faces and all of these surfaces. So rather than me waffle on for too long, let's go back to Fusion. So I'll go back to Fusion here. I'm going to close out of this model. I don't need to save it. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to come into my folder 3. So using the technique I used before, I'm going to go to Sculpt to Solid, double click on that data set. Now this one, it's partially completed body. It looks very close to, I think, what we were making before. So if we look at it, it's not actually far off what we've done previously. So it's getting there. We weren't too far off. What we're going to do now, we're going to model this end here up to the body and then merge it together. And to do that, I'm going to start at this end. So I need to create an offset plane. Now there are lots of real cool ways to make planes in Fusion 360. A lot of them you'll recognise. So up in the construct up there, you'll notice offset plane is at the top, but if I open up the dialog box, you'll notice all the different ways that we can create planes and axes. I just want the offset, and I want to select this plane, and I'm going to create another plane over here around about minus 160. So you see there, it's going to sit at that point there. If I go OK, I've now created that plane. Before we use the primitive, again I'm going to use it, but this time, rather than using the cylinder, I'm going to start by using a primitive box. I'm going to select this plane here. So if I now just move on to my front view, I want to make sure that I'm hitting the center line. So what I might do is just come straight onto there, specify the center, and then I'm going to come off and I'm going to make it around about, I think, 60 millimeters, and then tab to the other one, and I can put 70 in. Yep, so it's created that box there for me. Spin that around a little bit so we can see where it's done. Direction, ideally, I want it to be going in this direction, coming forward that way, and around about 20, I think, was the size that it was there on the front view. I can actually pull it out a little bit further if I want. And a new body, and I'm going to take advantage now of this mirror line. So if you notice here, last time when we did, we had no mirror. On this one, I'm going to do mirror. We get a drop down box and it asks which word you want to mirror, because we could actually mirror it on this line there, or down the length there, or across the top. So if I go length, you see I get the green line. If I press OK, it now adds that body. I can modify, and I can select, I'm just going to double select the body, and I'm just going to move it up a little bit into position, across here, move it down a little bit. Now one thing I'm going to do before I actually do any more modification on it, I want this to be hollowed out. I don't want these edges. So if I scroll in and I select that, now you'll notice because it's got mirror symmetry, it's picking up the one on the other side. If I just press delete, it removes that face, but look how it's opened it out. Do the same there. If I spin it round, do the same on the back on this side, delete, delete. And that is more the shape that I wanted than that original design that I got. I can then select my body, I can select it, modify it, so I can scale it up a little bit if I wanted to sort of try and match this a little bit more. Maybe I want to double select that edge, bring it in, double select that edge, bring that back in a little bit so it more lines up, get that in the middle a little bit. So that's starting to line up a little bit more like we want it. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually bring this section down here. So I'm going to view on the front face. I'm going to double click to select this back edge. Then I'm going to hold the Alt key and I'm just going to pull out the face there. But then I'm going to use the scale and I'm going to actually just scale that down a little bit there. In fact, I won't use that particular scale. I'll use the middle one and I'll scale it in all directions there. Then using the Alt key again, I'm just going to bring out another one and another one just there for the minute. So you can see now how I'm starting to build up this end around there. Now one of the things I want to do, if I look back on this front end, is I've got quite a sharp transition here of my model, and at the minute this is a little bit smooth. So what we can do, if you know, this is far sharper, that transition there, than the G2 continuity that Fusion 360 gives us. So if I just finish out of this edit form and then I go modify and crease. Whoops, I didn't want to do that. See how that one's gone dark because it was selected? Just cancel that. Undo that a minute. There. Right, so what I want to do is, with nothing selected, modify crease. And if I double select that, you'll notice now how that transition has changed. And if I just OK that, and you'll notice it's gone a much darker colour, because that's where that is now a crease in there. I can pull this and I can edit it and I can pull it in if I want there. So you can see now how it has affected it there. Whoops, let's pull that down a bit. There. Pull that. I'm just going to transition that down a bit there. So again, soft manipulation. I'm pulling, but that's now given us a very hard, and if I come out there you can see now what sort of crease that has given us within that section. One thing to ensure if you're using these data sets further down the line is to ensure that this primitive is on the center XY plane so that the center of it matches the center point of the rest of the model. Now, one of the things I didn't do was check that, so we'll see what happens as we go along. It may be we get an error later on, but I may not have centered it on the XY plane, which may cause us a little bit of an issue further down the line, but we'll see how we go on. So what I want to do now, I want to add 3 more faces onto here and bring it in a little bit. So again, just like before, I want to start bringing it down into this. So I'm going to modify, I'm going to double click this edge, then using my Alt key, just to add 1, 2, just 3 more, there. If I'm looking at this part, you'll see it's quite a bit off the model, so what I can do is I can just select this and start to pull. Oh, I didn't want that one, I wanted the arrow, just pull the arrow up. If I set the alternate one and let Fusion do the smooth in between, maybe pull this one up a little bit to try and start to match it a little bit. So now that I've added 3 more faces towards the handle and I've put it roughly into position, next what I want to do is try and line it up. So what I'm trying to do is line up these faces with these faces, because eventually we're going to bridge between the two. If I go in to my 3-dimensional view, you see there's quite a distance that way. I can, if I want, just try and manipulate this myself. So either using these, I can bring that down and see if I can actually get that more roughly into position. Smooth it off there. This one, maybe just shift select. So again, it's very much playing about with the model having a feel for it, what you think is going to work with it. Spin that around, you can see that probably needs to come up a little bit now. Maybe that one up a touch. It's getting a little bit closer. But as you develop your skills, try to get used to looking at it in the isometric view. In this way, developing this sort of third eye, this three-dimensional eye of starting to line things up, selecting and then dragging the plane. You'll see that it's not only more dynamic, but it gives great results, and it allows you to develop that eye. So when you're working with someone who is looking for guidance or mentorship through your training, you can show them that you have developed a higher level of skill set. So rather than just looking at the top view, looking at the front view, if you can do it in isometric as well, you're showing that appreciation and ability to work in a bit of a higher level. So indicator hours are generally a good reference to see that everything's going to match. So I'm going to press OK now. As far as I can see, it's not looking too bad. Now to close up this bottom bit, we're not going to introduce anything new. We're going to use the same tools but in a slightly different fashion. And what we're going to do is these three edges here, we're going to try and bridge with these three edges there. Now this is where if I've selected the wrong axis to put this primitive on, this is where I might get problems. So if I go modify, bridge, side 1, I go 1, 2, 3, side 2, 1, 2, 3. So we'll see what happens now. I don't need 3 faces between, so I'm just going to put 1 between. If I go OK, and there you go. Actually, I must have selected the right plane to do it on, which was luck more than judgment on this. Before now I've done it wrong and I've had a bit of a hole or a notch up there. So you can see now it's starting to come on our shape form. Next thing we need to do, if we're looking at this, is bring in this face here inwards, sort of our battery side of things in there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to first of all grab these 3 front edges. So if I don't know, that's grabbing too many. So what I want to do is just very quickly go 1, shift select 2, 3. Then using the Alt key, hold on, modify, using the Alt key and the arrow, what I'm going to do is just bring in here, Alt in, and start closing it off in that direction there. So I've now started to grip and bring in. I'm just going to turn my grid off there. Maybe I'll see it a little bit better there. So you can see I've started to bring that in. And then as you can see, finally what we need to do is bridge between these 2. Now, what we need to do with this, when we're bridging between these 2, is make sure we create the same number of faces. And then, because what I want to do here is, with this, is make sure that I've got this center line, because if you notice here, I've got this line of symmetry going round. Now, if I was just to bridge with one face across here, it would do it, Fusion would do it, no problem. But then I would lose this sort of line of symmetry around this part of the handle there. In fact, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to, in the canvas here, I'm just going to change the opposite of that now, turn it down a bit. Okay. So I'm going to do modify, back to the bridge tool, and I'm going to select edge 1, so 1, shift select 2, 3, go to side 2. In fact, let's see if we can modify, let's go bridge. If I double click on side 1, double click on side 2, arrows are pointing in the same right direction, change faces to 2, hopefully puts us a line in the middle, press OK, and there we go. So we've now matched up here. So again, preview, it's looking pretty good. So the last step is to actually weld up now these vertices. So I've now got this gap here. You can see there, I've got my center point, so I know that that's going to weld to that. And let's see what we get. So modify. If we now go weld vertices, if I go that one to that, and because the mirror on, it's done it automatically on the side, and that one to that, and there you go. What we've now created is our basic model there. I know it's slightly out from the thing down there, but now this is where we can actually transition and move and modify. You can pick things up and we can move it, modify it to the actual design. Now if you want, you can start editing the form and moving things around, and you will have noticed through this I've not been too bothered about matching up the shape exactly to the sketch. So, you know, again, like I said, I can go around and I can start modifying, and I can start scaling it up, scaling it down, moving it round, and I can do that all over. You know, I can actually just start pulling and twisting anything I want, and really just starting to modify it around there. Even quite complex stuff. The only thing I've got to be careful of, like I did there, is I selected that, but not that center one there. So if I went back and then shift and selected the ones that I wanted, so I've got, where is it? Spin round, double select that, and then shift select the matching ones there, and then I can start pulling this out. There, let's have a look at it on the front face. Yeah, you can see I can start matching that, and then I can start bringing these down, and so you can, it's just getting to know each one. You know, I can box select bit view, and I can bring out this little toe bit, box select and bring that up. So very quickly you can modify, you know, this particular shape to get it to how you want it to be, and now it'll work best for you, like that. So again, you can work and you can modify it. And when you're doing these modifications, don't try and do every single edge one after the other. Just jump from one edge to the next, and leave a couple between, and let Fusion do, you know, the smoothing over between the two as you're going along. A lot of it's practice, but also paying attention to what happens. So as you're doing it, see what happens, and then modify your approach depending on the results that you want. Again, different, you can pick up vertices, you can pick up edges, faces. Each one will give you a slightly different variant, slightly different outcome when you're modifying and changing it. And it's what works for you, what works for your students, what results they want. And a lot of it is having a go, trying it, and finding that the best way, the best solutions for you. And not everything I'll do is possibly the best way of doing it, or even probably the correct way of doing it. But there isn't really a correct way to do it. It's more down to individual taste or what your customer or students is trying to do. It will cause a lot of differences in the approaches. Right. So what I'd like to do now is look at transitioning this real cool looking curvy body into something we can do something with, somehow taking it to the next stage. Because at the minute, if you look at it, it is just an infinitely thin sculpt body. There's no thickness to it, there's no depth to it, it's not solid, it's just this curved structure. if we now finish form, so what I'm going to do on this is finish form there. You'll see now it looks as though, you know, I've actually still got some work to do here. Again, you can see there where I will need to do some adjustments on my design because I've got some of the interior workings coming out. So again, to do that, back into the timeline, double click on the form, open it up, and then you can start selecting various. Maybe I just wanted to shift select, oops, one edge, shift select that edge, modify, and you'll see as I start pulling it out, it starts tapering away. Maybe I want to shift select that one as well and pull that out a little bit. Maybe I pull that. So you can see just by doing different manipulations, again, I could spend hours and hours on this, just trying to get the shape perfect. But for that now, I think I've just covered the bit that I wanted to do, which was to remove that. So I finished on there, and it's now totally enclosed within my body there. So what I'd like to do now is look at transitioning this really cool looking curvy body into something. It generally looks, I think, you know, pretty good. We've addressed some of the areas now where the inner material has been poking out. The next thing I want to do is finish cleaning this up and make it into a solid. Now, I've been in and I've cleaned up, and I've actually now encompassed or enclosed all my internal workings. That makes sense. My casing now covers everything. The combination of conceptual and mechanical, it's great because we've got like the mechanical workings in there, and now we've got the body of the conceptual design that we're like molding around it. And as we move in from the sculpt environment to the model environment, you can see where there is a collision between components, or it sticks out. And that's, I think, a lot of it is because it encompasses both. A lot of realistically, a lot of industrial design is done around hard parts. So a lot of industrial, the gears, the motors, and things like that. And that's what we've got to design around. And what you're finding is, like, year on year, is companies are using these same internal parts and just changing the bodywork. So that they're actually taking the body like this from last year. So this saw was last year's design. And what they actually do is just take last year's design and add something to it, or pull something out, or modify it, make it look a bit better, look at the aesthetics of it and how it works. And then it's evolutionary design. Yeah, everything inside it's still the same. It's still the same gears, still the same motors, but the actual casework and the gubbins around it is moving with the times. It's looking more 21st century type of model. And being able to do this just in one tool like Fusion 360 is great. So now that we've got our finished form, what we need to do, I'm just going to turn off now the origin for a minute to make this a little bit clearer, is I want to make this a solid. I want to now try and make this into a solid object so that we can add some thickness to it and we can see where we're up to. To do this, because at the minute you'll see I've got a hole at the bottom and I've also got a hole at the side here. I need to patch these up. And the area that I can go into to do this is actually our patch environment. So we've got a patch environment here. And you see, again, the tools have changed. We've got Sketch, we've got a Create menu that's all specific to the patch environment. Same with the Modify. What does Patch do? Patch is similar to the construction environment. For you Inventor users, where you are able to bring in geometry from other areas, create some other geometry or fix it up just to make sure things work properly. What Patch will allow me to do is create surfaces. For lack of a better term, patch surfaces, using techniques a little more with solid modeling. For example, in the model workspace, I can't just draw a line and extrude a surface. in the Sculpt workspace, I can just draw a line or a spline and extrude that a distance, and it will create a T-spline face. Well, what Patch will allow me to do is define something that works better in the solid environment. What I'll do, I'll keep my canvas turned on to act as a bit of a guide. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start a sketch on my XY plane. So first I'm going to come here. So I'm viewing on my X and Y plane, and I'm going to create a sketch on here. I might actually do a spline. Let's have a look. So we'll do a spline. Again, if I'm struggling to select that, if I zoom out a little bit, it's a lot easier to select. Now what I'm going to do here, the first line of my body, what I'm going to do, I'm going to start out here somewhere. I'm going to draw a line that comes and follows this around here, this little bit. So if I move that across and pan across, and I don't want it to actually here snap to any line, so I'm going to make sure when I start, I'm not being perfect. Again, just roughing this out. There. If I click the tick, it gives me this. I can now go in and I can edit this, so I can move these around. Now you notice I'm actually still in the spline tool. So what I need to do is just escape, and now I'm out of the spline tool. And now I can actually modify, and just like before I edit on these, the tangencies I can turn and I can twist. I can move the points. This is the severity of the tangency going in and out of the point. And I can very quickly try and mold this to the shape that I want. I'm just going to pull that down a little bit there. Let's see if I can just twist that round a little bit. And I'm just close to trying to match my sketch. Now what I want to do is come over to the create pull down. You notice similar types of tools. So if I now stop that sketch, if I go into the create pull down here, there you'll notice similar types of tools that you'll find in other workspaces in the same places. So the consistency is really nice and it makes it easy to. So I'm going to extrude and bring out a distance. So if I go into extrude, now the profile that I'm actually going to extrude is just going to be this line. And if I just now go into my three-dimensional view, now I can actually pull this out as a flat plane. Now what I'm going to do, let's have a look at the dialog box itself. So what I can do here, I've got obviously one selected, selection. I can chain select, starting point. I can actually start from the profile plane, or if I want I can actually offset it. So I can actually start 10 millimeters off this plane to a certain distance if I was to select that. You watch the start point there. If I was to change that to 5 or 10, you'll see it's actually moved that from that plane before it starts. I don't want that. I just want from profile plane. I can go extent, so I can go distance to objects or through all. I can do one-sided, or I can do two-sided, different width lengths, or I can actually just go symmetrical. With this, I'm just going to go symmetrical. There, so if you look there, done that, and then finally, we could actually, in here, if we wanted to do, taper it at an angle. Yeah, so really nice capabilities built in. You can also make it a new body or a component. So I've got a new body or a component. We'll just leave it as a new body and press OK. Now what I'd also like to do here is create a new construction plane. Where we did this one at 160 before, what I want to do is create a new construction plane 180 out from the original. So if I turn on the origin again, offset construction plane, pick up on this one, come out, and this time it's at -180. So if we look at that, that should, there we go. It doesn't quite come to the end of the model that we've done before, and press OK. So we've now got our sculpt body that we used. We've got this plane that we created. Sorry, the plane that we created there. And we've got this extruded surface that we've got there. For those of you who are Inventor users, you will have heard me mention Sculpt when referring to T-splines and to a workspace. In Inventor, there is a Sculpt tool that will allow me to take a series of surfaces, planes or faces, and combine them into a solid model. Fusion 360 has a tool that essentially works exactly the same way and is actually quite clever. This is a very simple version model for us to work with. This tool is called Boundary Fill. So if I go on the select, create here, Boundary Fill. Again, you get a pop-up dialog box with it. Select the tools. So I want the body, I want that extruded surface, and I also want that plane. Yeah. Select the cells, that one. Operation, new body. Okay. So you'll notice now we've had a new body created here. In bodies, if I was to turn them two off, that is our new body that we've just created. There. So let me turn off the origins, and in my construction, turn off my plane that I created there. And now you can see this new solid body that I've created. To check that it's a solid body, or just to show you that it's a solid body, if I was just to turn on my origin again, if I go into Inspect and go to Section Analysis and just select any of these work planes, you'll see now my solid body. I can sectional analysis, I can pull that through. And you can see the sections through all the parts and components. Again, even with this sectional analysis, I've got manipulator handles. I can change the angles of it. Change it back. If I'm viewing round, again, I've got that way, so I can actually view my section through my model in that direction. But you can see there that my body that I've now created is solid. So just go OK. So that's now created it. You'll notice in analysis there, section analysis, that's on. If I turn it off, I'm back to my model. But if I ever want to view it again and manipulate it, I can do it so I can see my section there. Which is a nice little tool for checking things as we go along. So I've now got bodies forward turned off. I've got a solid model from that complex geometry. What we need to do now is make an opening for this blade here. We can turn the blade guard off in the browser if we want. If we wanted to make an opening for that blade. So if I was to go into the browser, what I can do, blade guard assembly, I can turn that off. We'll choose that one there. Blade guard, turn that one off. So you can see now I've turned them off, which allows me then to start a rectangle tool. Yeah. So what I can do, I can now go back into my model space. Clicking on that section there, go to sketch, 2-point rectangle, and what I'm going to do, because I know there is something inside that I need to dodge, if I go hidden edges, I can see the actual blade, this circle bit there. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to do a slightly larger opening in that circle there. Stop sketch. Now before I do the extrude, what I want to do is actually shell this model out. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm actually going to split the body. I tell you what, let's split the body first. Let's show you that. So at the minute we've just got this one solid body. So I select the body. If I go into modify, split body, I've got the body already selected. The splitting tool itself is going to be where I want it to be split. And because we're on the XY origin here, if I open up my origin and I select my XY, there, you'll see there it's got a nice cutting edge where it wants to cut. slice, press OK, and you'll notice now I've actually got two bodies in my body folder. I can turn one off, switch it, turn the other one off, spin it round, which then allows me, if I wanted to do, to shell it to 2mm. Now I could have shelled it as a whole body, but also what I can do here, if I select this, modify shell, just put it to 2mm inside. Okay, and there you go, that's now shelled that side. Do exactly the same on the opposite side. There. So whilst I've got it selected, modify shell, 2mm inside. Okay, so it's now shelled both. Turn on. Let's get rid of my visual style back to my normal visible edges. You can see here my sketch. I can actually now extrude that sketch. If I pull my arrow inside, now what you will notice, it's starting to cut through everything. As I pull it, everything starts to disappear. And what that is here, what you've got with, we can either in Fusion go to all the components down at the bottom and turn them all off, and then they wouldn't be affected, or alternatively, down at the bottom here with objects to cut, if I open that up, I can actually just remove, untick all the bits that I don't want to be cut. There. Just press OK, and it's now just cut my casing. So we've got two halves, we've got the cut. I can then go in, and if I want to do a radius, I can either go back to my sketch, if you look in the timeline, and go back to my sketch, and I can put fillet radius in, if I wanted to do, in here. So sketch, fillet in there, if I want to do. Stop sketching, just to show you. There you go. Or alternatively, oops, I can go modify, fillet, or F as a shortcut, and select the line there, and then pull. You can see it there, and pull, and change my fillet. So there's a few different options of where you can actually, obviously in this option, you know, I can go around, I can do multiple selections. Finally, we can turn the guard back on. So let's just reduce these down a little bit. Yeah, so I can turn the blade guard back on, get the back assembly back on, and that is our completed model there that we've done. The same with this as well. If I wanted to add in here a fillet, you know, if I wanted to go around now, I can move down my timeline and I can go back wherever I want, and I can modify things. If I wanted to add a fillet in here now on this face, select it, modify fillet, put a little fillet in, press OK, move my timeline forward, and it adds all that in. What you will notice though, because I put the fillet in before the split, if I then just turn off the one of the bodies there, you'll notice that it's curved in there. Yeah, there you go, you can actually see the edge. Let's get display settings, visible edges, hidden edges. So you actually see all my edges in there as well. In fact, I'm not actually quite happy. That doesn't look as though it's shelled properly. What if I shell? It's not and I've done. So what I'll do, let's try this. See again, the beauty of Fusion. If I don't like that, just delete it out of the time frame, timeline, delete again out of there. What I'll do, I'll roll it back to probably to, let's go to the shell. Right, we've split. So I'll remove one of the bodies. What I want to do is shell this. So we're going to modify shell that 2mm. That's better. That's looking a lot better there, and you'll see that the fillet does follow that. You can see there that you can make mistakes, and you can very quickly with Fusion go in and rectify them and sort out what you've done. You haven't lost any details, and it's just a great tool for doing it. So may as well make it complete and shell this side as well. So modify shell like that, 2mm, press OK, and then we've got that complete. Excellent.